Hello, welcome back to Dr. Introspect TV, and it's your host, Dr. Introspect, and I'm back. I am coming at you with another podcast style video. I'm going to be doing this for a while, so let me know if you prefer this to the other ones I do, but let's see. Today I want to bring to you an analysis of the show Sweet Tooth. Per the title, this is a Netflix series. It has 2 seasons. I saw the first one last year and the second one dropped this year, and I have to say this is one of the better shows I've seen in a while. In fact, I cried at the ending. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I feel so emotional about some of the things I see lately. But I do. It was such an interesting story, so emotional. I don't know. If you've seen it, let me know how you felt about the show and share that with us in the comments. And as you know, there are going to be spoilers in this analysis. Per usual, I'm going to be focusing on just the psychological, philosophical aspects of this, maybe some social commentary as it relates to our current society, but I'm not going to be talking about the cinematography and things like that, so it's not what we do on the Introspect channel. And so with that, let's dive right in. So, Sweet Tooth. If you ask me, I will tell you that this is more so a philosophical type of show. It covers a conversation I think people have all the time within themselves or within other groups, various debates with regards to humanity and I would say even climate change and the role of humans in the destruction of the earth and things. It has an adventure-like theme to it. Some of it is also kind of fantasy in the sense that in a way the creatures in the show are not rooted in reality. So something to note there. Some background of the story. It is set into the future. In some way it feels like regular, like contemporary society, like we were living lives the way we live right now, and then suddenly there is a disease outbreak. So it's also kind of apocalyptic, I would say. You know, it's like an apocalypse, and people are dying. No one knows why. Almost like a virus, you know. Civilization has broken down, but at the same time, the babies that the humans are birthing in this period are half human and half some other species of an animal. You could be part human, part snake, part human, part eagle, part human, part mouse, you know, just a weird combination of the species. Some look straight up like animals and some look more human and have like things like maybe claws or, you know, horns coming out of their head and things like that. And they are called hybrids. And that's pretty much how the world is right now. All the babies being born at this time are always hybrids. In the season 1, we are introduced to a kid called Gus. Gus is the protagonist, hero of the story, and he is living in this rural area, like in the woods, with this man, and this man that takes care of him, he is killed, and Gus I mean, this aspect of the story is quite tragic. How because he's a kid, he kind of enters this delusion of like the man is still there. It took him forever to bury his corpse, but like he's a kid. Gus is like 10 to 12 years old, around that age, I'd say. And the body was just there. It had become like bones and skeleton or something. And he would just go into La La Land in his mind and pretend like, everything was great. He's making food, like everything's fine. But eventually he leaves and decides that he's going to go and find his mother. And yeah, so he embarks on this journey to go and find his mother. He comes in contact with this man. He's a black guy, tall, huge. He calls him Big Man, and Big Man's actual name is Jepperd. Big Man used to be a football player in his time, back in the day when civilization was still normal, and now everything is just crazy. And back to Gus. Gus is trying to find his mom. As the story continues into season 2, we learn that even in season 1, Gus was created in a lab, and his mother, in quotes, the person who created him, was a scientist, a doctor, and there was a belief that she could fix things because she had left him as a baby with the person that was taking care of Gus in the woods to go and find the cure. And for all these years, for over a decade, she's been doing this study trying to find a cure, and Gus is trying to meet her because he believes he can help her find a cure. And that is pretty much the whole adventure. And per typical adventure stories, a lot of things happen in the journey, in the course of everything, but I'm going to do some analysis on some key characters. For one, Gus. Gus's character reminds me so much of Aang, that is the airbender in the Avatar series. Especially the movie, how wide-eyed he is, how optimistic he is, how he is so positive, and it's so childlike. It reminds you of what it's like to be a kid again, how you believe in the best in people, regardless of what happens, regardless of what you're seeing in front of you. When he met this big man guy, Big Man was in the worst place of his life. As you know, when catastrophic things happen, like this kind of situation where the world has crumbled and there is anarchy, people become very selfish. People are doing all kinds of things. And so right now, there are a group of people that believe that the hybrids, those little kids, need to be hunted because they're not normal, they don't belong around society, and that the cure is somehow in their bloods because those kids were immune to the disease, and they are literally killing them and extracting their blood and doing things in the lab. And so there are bounty hunters that go about hunting these kids, and that was who Jepperd Big Man was. So to have a man like that turn into someone that it becomes a critical player in this story is just huge. His life literally turns around, and that's the kind of impact that Gus has on people, the people that join him on this journey. He is not judging people based on the evil they have done. He is always looking towards the possibility of what human beings can be and what people can be, regardless of their present actions. And so, with that background on Gus and Jeopard, the main people of the story, I want to talk about the philosophical aspects of this story. And I have to say, it's the philosophical aspects of the story that makes me like this story. It reminds me of Attack on Titan, which is my favorite anime, by the way. And I know that anime has a lot of fight scenes and things like that, and that's why other people like it. But for me, it's the philosophical aspect of it, the rationalization of humanity, and like those big questions. In that reality over there, they're fighting every day to survive, but like surviving is like, okay, you survive today, but you probably only live for another 30 months before something else happens, or another 30 days before something else happens. I meant not 30 months. And it almost feels like, what is the point? And in this story, people are trying to survive, and apparently there is the belief that the earth is basically fighting back. There have been multiple stories in literature, in the media, some of them horror, thriller, showing us how the earth fights back, fights humanity because of the damage that human beings have done. Think about those surveys or just memes you see on the internet that ask you, what can we do to make the world better? And sometimes some people say, get rid of humans, and I have to say I belong to that group. I'm one of those people. I am definitely team Thanos. People might not agree with his method, but he was right. Human beings are the problem. Well, he said overpopulation was the problem. I digress. But in general, human beings cause so much damage to the earth. And if that is the case, if that is the premise, then the solution is simple: eradicate them. And the disease called the sick, is what they call it in the show, is eradicating human beings such that a new species can take over, which is the hybrids. And typically people think about things like maybe an infectious disease outbreak, an explosion, maybe war, or big world scale war that just kills everyone and wipes everyone out, or cuts them down significantly to a very small group left surviving, and then the harm is reduced, or some kind of geological activity where maybe an asteroid lands somewhere, and the earth is like, the human beings in the earth are destroyed, the way people predicted the dinosaurs, were destroyed and stuff. But in this case, it is the sick. It's a biological transformation that is happening, and there is a lot of emphasis on the greed of humanity. And I think it's something that a lot of people reflect on, and they think human beings are so greedy. Among all the species in the world, we are the only ones that feel like everything is for us to take. I think about how the animals in the wild, there is water, there is land, there are vegetables, the trees, everything, and the environment keeps going, whether or not a person is there to plant the trees, those things exist and they continue to. And the animals are not like zealously chopping down trees to get wood and timber to build skyscrapers or whatever it is human beings do. human beings go and they abuse the resources. They just take everything for themselves without much regard for the other members of the ecosystem. There is this greed. We take, and there's this entitlement. So there's an entitlement that we feel like we own everything, and then the greed that comes with that. And in this story, that is exactly what causes the sick. This man goes into a cave. He sees this tree that looks like a deer's horn, and he chops into it and takes the blood. They called it the blood of the earth. And as soon as he does that with the ox, the sick is released into the atmosphere. And that's when 100 years ago, not in our time, but in the time of the story, they all began. And no one knew that that was when it began, but that was when it all began. And slowly, when people will have it, they will travel, they would go somewhere, it would spread, and that was what happened. But greed and entitlement and these other things associated with humanity is also what drives the killing of hybrids. Just because they are part human and part another species, there is already the implied assumption that they are beneath us. And therefore, it is okay to just kill them and harvest their parts. And these hybrids, they talk, they can speak, they can speak English, they're kids. And, someone might argue that's probably how vegans feel about human beings killing animals for food or something, but this is kind of different. Someone might say it's the same, and you can argue for or against. Share your thoughts in the comments. But again, that entitlement, like, okay, we are going to find a cure any which way, no matter the cost. And on a grand scale, this is humanity, but even on a personal scale, one-on-one, in individual people, you can see. On one hand, you have Gus's mom, who is far away in Alaska trying to find this cure, and she is doing it from a self-sacrificing aspect, to where she sacrifices her relationship of raising this child, Gus, to do this, and just forever being in pain because she still hasn't found the cure, and there's a lot of guilt. And then on the other hand, we have this other doctor called Dr. Singh, who is the doctor that is in fact behind the murdering of those kids. He works for some really bad people, and he thinks he is doing this noble act of trying to find a cure because, his wife died and he couldn't find a cure before she died, and he feels bad and feels responsible and feels like he has to find the cure. But then he goes about this in this other way. And it's also the mindset of any cost, anything it takes to make it happen. And boy, did I think Dr. Singh was horrible in season 1, but when we got to season 2, my God, there was like no saving him for him in my mind at that point. Just evil. And so when you think about this, this is the scale with the doctors, but then there's still other people, the selfishness, the people turning on each other. When you think about all this, it just boils down to the philosophical question of, are humans to blame? Are humans worth saving? And that's the kind of discussion I think this series kind of opens your mind to. Human beings are the problem. Even when you take it to religious spaces and people say Judgment Day needs to come, they're not thinking about Judgment Day for the goats and the sheep. It's for people. It's for people that are bad, you know? And it's like, towards the end, basically at the end of season 2, Gus is at his breaking point. Because they finally get to the cave and they get to the tree and they decide that, like, after everything they have been through, his mother says, you know what? Maybe human beings are not worth saving. Maybe our time is done and we don't need to keep fighting it, right? And she is coming to this conclusion and making the peace that at some point the disease is going to get her and she will die. And not just her, but every other human. This is also her accepting this in spite of the level of sacrifice she has done, trying to find the cure, trying to find the answer, and coming to terms with that. And Gus argues in favor of humanity. He's like, but they're good people. There's you. There's Jeopard. You know, and in Gus's mind now, Jeopard is a good person. Big Man is a good person. Irrespective of all the other bounties he's done in the past, irrespective of everything else he has done in the past, the Jeopard he has come to know and the Jeopard he believes Jeopard would be going forward is good, and his life is deserving of sparing. His life and anyone else out there like him is deserving of sparing, and he believes that there is good in everyone. And this is the point where his youthful ideology is confronted, because the bad guys, they come and they meet him here, and so many evil things have happened to him. People have hunted him down. They've tried to kill him. They're looking for him as we speak. They chased him into the cave because they want to kill him. And even in that moment, he was defending humanity. I think the only thing that comes close is, I'd say, Christ in the Bible for those who are religious, and when he's been nailed to the cross and he's like, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. That is the kind of mind this boy was having, but it was challenged because when those people came in, they offed his mom. In his front, they offed his mom because they were trying to off him, and she stood in the way and the knife pierced her instead, and it was so painful. And it was so painful. And he is so mad. He is so angry. He's like, all of you don't deserve to survive. Like, it was kind of crushing. It was so painful to watch and see him come to that conclusion. Because, I don't know why it took that level for it to really sting. Because that his Paba, is what he calls the man who raised him in the forest, was attacked by humans, or you can say bad humans in quotes. So many things that have happened to him in life were because of quote unquote bad people, and even then he still had hope. And it was in this moment that he lost every iota, every shred of hope, and said, you guys don't deserve to live. You guys don't deserve to survive. It was crushing. I think for me, the story was kind of reinforcing. It wasn't eye-opening, but it was reinforcing that there are good people and there are bad people in the world. good things happen, bad things happen. It can often seem like there is more bad than good. And the question is the good enough? The good in humanity, because even in that moment, as this evil was happening, something else was happening outside of that scene. Outside, someone that is a family member of this horrible, villainous woman, that is the person that gets his mother killed and did all these things, her child is pregnant and is delivering, and all the people that were fighting and everything are coming together to help her bring this baby into the world safely. They were at odds before, they were fighting before, but they are helping her right now. And it's like there is always some good. Even in that moment, there was some good happening somewhere. Ultimately, in the end, the story leads us to believe that nature decided that humans deserved to be spared. Gus sets the tree on fire, and somehow the sick stops immediately. Immediately it stops everywhere. So all the humans that are in existence right now get to live and die naturally. Of course, if they have children, their children will be hybrids. But they don't have to suffer the disease anymore. So nature chose to spare them. There's an aspect of this story that was also kind of spiritual in a way, because there are times when certain characters will have visions, like in a dream or asleep, and they'll see things. So there is some mysticism happening in this story. And that's why I'm saying nature decided, because that's what was communicated to us. Gus wakes up and he says he let nature decide whether or not hybrids should die, humans should live, whatever. I guess, I don't know. The question I want to leave with you guys with right now is the small instances of good you see in the world, in your life. Is that enough to overlook all the bad that humanity does? That's a question. Think about it. There are no right or wrong answers. Just think about it and share with us in the comments what your thoughts are on that. Now, I want to touch on 2 other characters in the story. I've spent most of the time talking about the philosophical aspect of the entire story and the message. And now I want to touch on 2 characters that I thought really made this story something. And the first one is Tommy Jeppard, Big Man. Tommy's character is played by someone of Nigerian ancestry called Nonso Anozie. I'm not someone that comments on acting and things like that, but Nonso's delivery in this story was just really great. I'm trying to think of another adjective. I could really feel his emotions, especially in season 2. And so I saw a character growth for Big Man in season 2. And it's quite obvious because in season 1, he is like this tough guy. You know, if Gus is stuck somewhere and Big Man shows up, you know Gus is going to be okay. He can take 4 or 5 guys at a time, whether he's fighting them with his fists or he is blazing in with guns, you know, with pew-pews. The man is capable. But by the time we get to season 2, there is a fragility that we are introduced to, and I see it. I'm sure you guys can see it too if you've seen this series, and it makes your heart hurt a little bit, because like, come on, this is big man, and we see it's like a revolving theme throughout the story. He's being overly cautious, when Gus is like, we're gonna go to Alaska from Colorado. They don't know how. Transportation doesn't work. There's no planes. There's no airports. There's nothing like that happening in the world anymore. But he just knows he's going to go, and they're gonna find a boat, and and he is so driven and optimistic, and just, we're going to do it somehow. But you can see, big man, there is a lot of apprehension. And we see that in the earlier episodes, but it continues the entire series. Like, he is so protective of Gus, and we understand there is a bond that has developed between the two of them by now. He feels responsible for him. He feels like he is his caretaker. But it's not just that. It's the awareness of his vulnerability, He is like, I have a busted knee now. I have a busted shoulder. I have this. Like, I want to protect you. I want to protect all these kids, but I don't even know if I can anymore, because my body could fail me and then they could get hurt. And how could he forgive himself? And I thought every time I would see that vulnerability, it would just make my heart ache, because it's not something we see in our everyday world. And this is why I talk about the social commentary with regards to our society. A man's vulnerability is not something that is encouraged, and this is not a scenario where he is probably even allowed to, because he is bearing this vulnerability around kids. Okay, so this is even worse, because in reality, just adult vulnerability is probably a better space for it. But adult child is not okay. You're supposed to be the adult. You shouldn't let them see those things. And there is this level of respect among all of them. There isn't this hierarchy of I'm the adult. Every time he would look to Gus and be like, Gus, what do you want to do? And as season 2 progresses, he really sees that Gus, he's a kid, he's still a kid, but he has carried on so much. He has grown up so fast that he hasn't quite given him the level of credit. And I think this was especially apparent when Gus had to dispose of the bodies that were on the boat. And so there was an episode where they were on the boat to Alaska. When they finally got to the boat was empty. Turns out the sick was on the boat, and it had killed everyone. And there was only one person surviving, and he was hiding out somewhere. And he was the only one that could coordinate the ship. And because the captain had, died, and he said only if all the bodies had been thrown overboard into the ocean, then he could come. And his plan wasn't to even come up, but Gus was so determined. Gus had locked up Jeopard, Big Man, and Dr. Singh into a room so they don't get the sick, and he did all of this by himself because he just had to get to Alaska. He just had to go and find his mom. He just had to go and find a way to help to cure the sick. And my heart was just breaking watching him. At a point in time, he had to stop because these were people. These were parents, a dad and his kid, lovers, friends, people that wanted a better life, people that wanted to survive. That's why they got on the boat. And there was a big fight to get on the boat, And now they are no more. And now he has to do this. After that, I don't know if they actually had a conversation, but it was after that that Big Man saw that, okay, Gus, no one should have to go through that. That was traumatic, even for an adult. And somehow this kid just keeps going, you know? And so there was that egalitarian nature to the relationship of that group of people, the team. They were trying to like do this. And him saying that, I'm scared. Him saying it out loud, my body is not what my body used to be, and I am scared. That was touching. The second thing that was really, really touching was when they were making their way into the cave. And as they were making their way into the cave, there were these flowers. And I think those flowers kind of grow wherever the sick is. But the flowers were frozen. But they are walking through the flowers. So it's touching your face, it's touching your body. And Big Man has a panic attack right there and then. With the way the story was written, anyone else could have had a panic attack. You know, it could have been Gus's mom. It would make sense. You know, people would be like, yeah, that's fine. You know, she's a woman. Women are allowed to be scared. It could be Gus. That's fine. Gus is a kid. He's allowed to be scared. It wasn't either of them. It was Big Man. And the reason why it didn't seem out of character is because the entire season they have been showing us levels of emotional leakage from him, levels of vulnerability. So by the time we see him have this panic attack, it's not like, what do you mean? A strong guy from season 1 all of a sudden can't walk through some flowers but he was having an intense panic attack and he couldn't do it. He had been through so much already at this point. Everyone else has been through so much, but again, I thought that was powerful because the contrast to who this person is, to who this character is, huge, big quarterback, you know, whatever thing he played, linebacker guy in the football back in the day, bounty hunter, huge, big, strong, been through a lot of stuff, seen a lot of stuff, and now he's having a panic attack over flowers that could kill him, you know. And not long after, the flowers start to melt, so now they're actually going to be able to kill you. That was powerful. And I don't know how other people might see that scene. There is a group of people that feel that male masculinity is being threatened in the media, but I would say, if anything, this is quite the strength. It's encouraging vulnerability, especially male vulnerability, normalizing it, encouraging it, showing us it's normal, but it's also showing us the importance of mental health. And I think men's mental health is something that is not given as much attention as it needs to. And seeing that was quite impactful. The next character I want to talk about is Dr. Singh. This man is a whole other level of evil. I just can't think enough bad things about him. And as you know, it's like a reverse cycle, okay? Big Man was, before the sick stuff happened, quarterback, athlete, you know, you watch him on TV, successful, everything. But then during the time of the sick, he is like the bad guy, right? Now, Dr. Singh was a medical doctor. He healed people for a living. He birthed people's kids. He took care of people for a living. And then he started working for the evil people that were hunting and harvesting the hybrid kids. He had done so much evil, and before he did this, we saw his character break down in season 1. He was still good. Then he found the notes about the experiments, and he could not get himself to do it. Like, he had to kill a kid. But it was like, well, if I killed one kid and somehow I found the cure, then it would be worth it. But then one kid turned to 2, turned to 3, and nothing has happened. We still haven't found the cure. And at this point in time, there's so much blood on his hands. So by the time we get to season 2, Dr. Singh has it in his mind. Again, with that mysticism I said that the story has, he said he saw a vision and that, he was going to be part of the cure. And this is how he convinces Gus and Japed and the other people to let him join them, to go on the boat and to go to Alaska and stuff. I didn't trust him. So more spoilers. His whole plan was to go there and kill Gus. He believed that sacrificing him will immediately end everything, and then all the new babies that would be born would be regular human babies. And when you think about the psychology of his mind and his rationalization, he had done so much evil. He had convinced himself that the only way that whole slate would be wiped clean, the only thing that would justify all the evil he has done, is when he rids humanity of the sick by killing Gus. Think about that for a second. Killing another kid. And like how? Like, he's following them on the boat. He is being with them. He is like, I don't know. Just think about someone with you, doing everything with you, planning with you, all the while knowing that they're planning to off you when the opportunity comes. When did he make peace with that? Was it easy for him? Another kid? He could not live with himself. He could not live with what he had done. And it had to be another extreme, something as bizarre, something as ridiculous as, I have to sacrifice him. There is no proof, there is no logic, there is no reason behind it. It's magical thinking at this point. This is a man that cannot live with the things he has done. This is a man, and so I compared him to Japed, Big Man. In the end, Big Man changes. His encounter with Gus changes him. But saying the sick brings out the worst in him. And he might say he did everything trying to find a cure. What is the point of finding a cure if you had to do so much evil to get there? Is it worth it? That's another philosophical question I want to know. What are your thoughts on that? Does the end really justify the means? And with that, I come to the end of this analysis. I touched on 3 main things. I talked about the whole psychological, philosophical exploration of humanity, the goodness of human beings, our ability to do good, and the evil we do, not just to each other, but to the earth. And I asked some questions about that as well. And then I talked about Japed's character, how that presents the vulnerability that is in all of us, and especially in men. And then I talked about Singe, how experiences transform people, how people that you would think are saints can become bad, given a certain outcome. And then I asked the question about if the ends justify the means. In this story, the takeaway is, for every bad, there is always good. There is always good and there is bad. The two often exist. It also shows that black and white are not two separate dichotomies. Human beings can have both in them at any given time, and they are capable of both. Someone could have been the worst person for the first 20 years of their life, and then they could become the most pious, most wonderful, giving, kind person for the other 20. And it can also be the reverse, as we saw in Jeopard and in Sing. And we see the two of them together a lot of the time. There's this duality in their character, and they hate each other in the story. In fact, Dr. Singh is the one that delivered Jeopard's, at the time, baby back when the Sikh was just starting. And that baby was not human. And Jeopard bailed on his family. And he had to live with that torment his whole life. People are not just what they do. Or are they? Are we what we do? Am I good because I do good? Am I forever doomed to be evil because that is all I have done? With that, I come to the end of this analysis. It has been a lovely time to spend with you all, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Share this video with someone. Think about it, watch the show, come back, join us in the conversation. Let me know what other kind of videos you'd like to see. And I leave you with my usual message. I love you. Love yourselves too. Goodbye.